How's everybody doing today? Thanks for joining us. I'm Dylan.
I'm John.
John's got a new mug today he's going to tell you about.
Oh, yes. Law firm Pasternak. They do a lot of great work with um, kids in getting going to bat against the state if there's any denial for services for kids with special needs. So reach out to Dan Pasternak, and thanks for the mug, buddy.
Awesome. Good mug. All right. So thanks everyone for joining us. Today we're going to continue our talk with technology and HR, but this will be revolving around onboarding and some of the steps within onboarding. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Question number one. Compliance is a concern for companies, and how does technology provide the solution for it?
Read it again for me, please.
Compliance is a concern for companies.
Okay.
How does technology provide the solution for it?
Well, I mean, compliance is one of the easiest components as far as technology is concerned for a company to take on is what is common approach. So it's a training term as well, common approach, that you're teaching the same curriculum, that you're presenting it in the same way. When it comes to compliance, technology can serve as that common approach platform. So they give you they being the technology companies give you a platform to set up those components, let's say for an onboarding checklist, right? In this context, what are the documents that you need every time when you hire someone? And so you can have in there fail-safes around employees having to complete these documents ahead of their first day, on their first day, but doing it all in a systemized fashion so that nothing gets missed. I forgot to have them do the state tax form. They did the W-4, but I forgot to have them do the state tax form. Okay, well, if you're following the common approach in the technology platform that's there, then you don't have that issue. And most of the technology platforms have document storage pieces to them as well, whether it be connected to a robust payroll management system or a standalone HRIS, HRMS system. They're going to store electronically these documents that are being signed off on. Some of the documents can be built in a system. So I meant like an I-9 or a W-4. Those things could be all electronic. Sometimes certain states have things that are specialized and maybe you'll need to scan them in, but at least you can have the commonality of what the onboarding process needs to be. And it's the same for every single person. So you're guaranteed consistency.
I think that helps a lot because I know there's some places where I've worked in the past previous, they didn't have a checklist online, so I would send something in, and the problem with that is something could always get lost. Yeah. And it just takes away from that frustration. So like you said, having the checklist will definitely help make it more efficient.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something with email, which is great. So from a protection standpoint, an attachment in an email with your social security number, that sort of stuff, it may not be the safest way to do it. And most people send that stuff in without it being encrypted or password protected. So the potential, I'm not saying that every company has security problems, but the potential is there. When you go into a technology platform that's cloud-based, right, that has all of these security parameters built in around it, there's nothing being exchanged, and the threat of what happens in that email server is gone. And then the other piece to that too is it helps a lot with multi-site, multi-state organizations as well, because the people near the corporate office might do things really well because of the proximity and the influence of the corporate office or the corporate team. But you move further outside of that circle, people do things a little differently. The auditing component isn't as strong. Well, the same technology platform that's used across the board equalizes that. It doesn't matter about geography. Everybody should be following the same process. And there's a platform now.
All right. So technology is a great solution.
For sure.
Second question is it possible to have HR technology influence culture?
Ooh. Okay, that's a good question. So that question really, I think people on the surface might think no, because a culture is about people and the dynamic and the rapport and the relationship and the value system of the organization and the social responsibility, the output work, what we really stand for and stand behind, and how we believe in that. For sure, all of those things play into culture. But technology really can be a platform for you to use to communicate that messaging to staff, especially as an organization grows. And I just mentioned, multi-site, multi-state, it's different. One of the things that we see even at Humareso is when we're working with organizations that get what they wish for, they grew, right? They start with a handful of folks, 10 folks, 20 folks, and all of a sudden they're moving and they hit 50, 75, 500, 5,000. And at each nuance, it's a little different. Right, 500 employees seems like a lot, but when that becomes 5,000, you wish to go back to 500, right? Because the level of communication changes so drastically. So to come back to your question, technology, particularly video, is a great platform to use for you to have consistency in the messaging around what we're about. Having there be platforms for, I know some companies do sort of video town halls, right, where they're using, Zoom or LogMeIn or GoTo or whatever to hold these meetings, and so that people see one another. I'm talking to organizations that do virtual happy hours, every Friday at 4. They are, all going into the rooms where the big televisions are and stuff, and they're using a platform, a technology platform, to influence culture. And it seems weird. Right, it seems weird to have people in Boise, Idaho, and Sheboygan and Jupiter, Florida. I mean, I'm just picking random places.
I know you like using the Sheboygan.
Sheboygan is a great one. Yes, Sheboygan, if you're listening. But for everybody to kind of come in with their drink and hey, happy hour. It seems a little odd because that's not what we might be used to. But if you adopt it and you use these platforms to help make this happen, people are connected. There still is something about seeing someone on video. It's why FaceTime is such a great tool, right, to use. Skype, those kinds of things are great because you really maintain and establish a rapport and a connection with folks. And I think HR can weave that into its technology platform and practice for culture. It doesn't have to just be a simple, I don't know, click through your HR management system. Okay, click, watch this video. Now you know everything about culture. It can't be just a one and done type thing. Certainly that video is important, but what else? What else are you using in the technology? Again, I think video is really important, pre-recorded and live.
We're doing live right now.
We're doing live right now.
So
and then this becomes a recorded piece for people to refer to later on.
Yeah.
Again, the consistency behind that is really nice and easily used.
I was going to ask you something, but you pretty much answered everything, because as you said, companies get bigger, that communication might trickle down because it's harder to reach, but through those video platforms, you're able to keep in contact.
A number of CEOs and COOs who that I've dealt with in growing companies, who say it doesn't feel like it used to. It's a pretty regular comment, and I get it.
The communication doesn't feel as
the whole company, the vibe doesn't feel like it used to. Well, because no one really paid attention. We communicated with one another because we were in proximity with one another. Well, what happens when your proximity changes and your entire communication strategy was based on just proximity? You got to approach it differently, and technology helps to give you those solutions.
Yeah, that was a great answer.
Well, thank you.
Going into the third and final question, as far as job performance is concerned, what's the best way to use technology for goals and expectations?
So, from the performance management slight piece of that, you can have your goals and objectives put into HR tech and have metrics built around it, right? And know what we're going to be looking for at each step of the way. It doesn't mean it's, everything isn't always, is it done yes or done no? Sometimes some things are check yes, check no. But some of it might be, we need to be at 15% by this point, completion. We need to be at 23% by this point, 38% by this point. Technology helps to keep you honest in what those parameters are. Oftentimes in performance, one of the things that creeps in is bias, right? How we feel. Because I like you, I might grade you on a different curve. I don't like this other person, my grading might be a little bit different. Even though if I try to remove those things, the work output might be very similar between the two of you. But that sort of color commentary in my head influences those things. Technology can help to remove that. I'm not saying it, removes it all. It doesn't. And right now there's a lot of work being done in AI, for example, to combat embedded bias because programmers are putting the AI together.
Oh, yeah.
So we're people, we have bias around even the way in which we ask questions. I had someone just share with me recently, if you go to Google Translate and you put in, he was a nurse, she was a doctor, and you put it into Google Translate, into whatever language.
Okay.
And then you take that and go back to English. It translates it, she was a nurse, he was a doctor. It translates it with the bias that, and what is sometimes defended there as well, percentage-wise.
Okay.
There are more male doctors than female doctors. There's more female nurses than male nurses. I can't argue if that's, let's say, what the real stats say. However, that's not what I said. I want to say she is a doctor and he is a nurse. But even in the embedded AI of Google Translate, bias creeps in. Does that make sense?
No, it definitely does. I didn't even think of something like that. That was the first time I heard that as well. So.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. And it may be for everybody watching as well. But that kind of stuff can happen even in our performance modules that we use for keeping people accountable to their goals and objectives. Obviously, those things influence culture as well, because if we have a high performance culture, the way in which we affirm and recognize and support those things being done has to be done in a way that is consistent as well. And technology can help to keep the consistency where it needs to be from a calendar standpoint, from a, you can't get to B until you complete A, but I really like doing B. I'm going to do B first. No, we are following the same path. So it keeps people honest that way as well. So for sure, yeah. I mean, I would build in all kinds of things for goals and objectives into tech-based platforms. It keeps everybody honest.
Makes sense too. Seems like it could work out. All right. Well, that was our last question for today. Very good discussion, by the way. The responses were great and thorough, so people will definitely enjoy this one. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this episode for onboarding. We're going to have this posted to our YouTube channel in just a little bit. For those who want to follow us on Instagram and Twitter, it's instagram.com/Humareso. Same for Twitter, twitter.com/Humareso. Thanks again for everybody joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.